Thank you for joining my final project, which is focused in human resources transitioning into a hybrid workforce. Now what? So, I'd like to take you through the evolution of the workforce so this way we can have a better understanding of how we've been able to transition throughout the past decade. Starting in 2010, work from home was starting to be introduced. This was a way for companies to attract the top talent by offering them this type of employee perk. But this was not something that companies were really utilizing during this time. As we progress into 2014, a hybrid workforce was starting to be adapted by some companies, giving them the option of working either in the office or being able to work at home. Moving forward to 2020, the pandemic has affected businesses in many ways, especially when companies were forced to go into a mandated quarantine, which left their workforce operating into 100% remote. This left a lot of challenges for the Human Resources Department because we had to understand what was going on from a state and federal level to ensure that the company was staying compliant in knowing the different policies and procedures that needed to be implemented during this time. As we were starting to move out of quarantine, starting to enter into our new normal, many executives were starting to notice more benefits to having this hybrid workforce and was something that they were actually looking into making more permanent. Now, this was something that human resources industry wasn't anticipating for another 5 to 10 years based on all the different resources that companies needed to have available to them, along with what they needed to offer their employees as well. So the pandemic really put the evolution of the workforce on a nice fast track. Now, my reason why I wanted to look into a project like this is for many reasons. First, starting with the pandemic is still occurring. So there is no vaccine. We're starting to enter into the winter months, and quite frankly, we cannot anticipate the future. So whether or not the CDC is saying that we're never going to go back into a quarantine, we won't know. So human resources needs to be aware of the type of data and analytics that are available to them and what we've collected and learned throughout these short couple months of what are our best practices. And now that companies also want to make this a more permanent decision, human resources need to reconstruct their policies and procedures to be able to match company goals and initiatives to also ensuring employee engagement and productivity when they have these options of either working in an office or working from home. Next part here is the implementation, which is something that I really didn't think at the beginning of this project was going to affect employee engagement at all, but it actually is one of the biggest indicators of ensuring the productive workforce. And that's where human resources need to reconstruct their training programs. And that is mainly for the management team. And the reason for that is because they need to understand some of the basics, which goes back to technology, the different applications that are out there, how to utilize them, and having management understand some of the more personal aspects of management, which is communication, really being able to read your team members to identify any type of challenges they may be going through so we can keep mental health on our forefront as well to make sure our employees are feeling best equipped in this type of new environment for them. And of course, the big reason here is I want to know more about employee engagement and what do human resource professionals need to do to make sure that they're staying engaged and productive. And that stems from different incentive programs, resources available to them, and kind of what a company as a whole can do to support their workforce. So the purpose behind this project, as I was stating, is I'm a young professional that's aspiring to become a leader in the human resources industry, and it's very important for any type of professional to understand the current challenges that the industry is facing. Obviously, the pandemic is the biggest challenge right now, and kind of the way they turned the workforce inside out. So, understanding the best strategies and what's being utilized out there is going to ensure the development for myself. So, this way I can properly help out departments once I start to get into the field. The goal here is to, like I said, find those best practices to ensure that employee engagement during the hybrid workforce, since this is something that is not going away and companies are having become more permanent. And being able to develop that plan, know where to start, what's included, some of the finer details. So this way, companies are not going to have any type of hiccups moving forward. And the big piece here is an article I read by Julie Cook Ramirez. She had stated from interviewing Xerox is that the same companies that struggled with the sudden shift to remote work are now able to move more deliberately and plan using the lessons of the past several months. And they have more confidence that they can adjust relatively seamlessly to the ripple effects that may continue as a result of COVID-19. Now, I do know after really collaborating a lot with my mentor that there are still a lot of companies, and I mean companies in Connecticut alone, that are still struggling with this sudden shift and they don't have a plan put in place. So the confidence level is not there. And this is this plan and this action that I have put together here is something that companies can really learn from. So this way they know how to best handle this type of environment. So, what are some of the challenges that these companies are currently going through? The big one here is communication. Now, this seems something that is so little, but it has the biggest impact here. We're noticing that leadership doesn't have the right training to know how to properly manage those employees that they don't have eyes on 24/7. A lot of studies have shown that they've seen that leadership is micromanaging their employees or not managing enough. In addition to that, because the communication is such a big problem, this also leaves the big factor of an emotional state of the employees. So, a big trend here was when management doesn't know how to find those indicators that the employees are experiencing any type of burnout or any type of challenges of their own. This makes it harder for the workforce to be productive and engaged. So it's essential for human resources to create that basic training for the leadership to understand how to best communicate with their employees, how to best identify any problems that maybe aren't being directly communicated with them. Now, what are ways that companies, or what are items that companies need to ensure that employee engagement? The first part here is technology advances. So we have multiple generations now working in the workforce, and a lot of them, starting with the millennials, like the company portal and intranet. This is a way that is going to help the workforce feel that they are well equipped, that they have all the resources accessible to them if they're working from home. This can include training videos, different marketing materials that they can give their clients. It's just a way for them to remain productive and know that they're being supported. Having management understand how to use these platforms, the technology platforms, having them utilize it on a daily basis with their team members. And if a company is able to provide laptops, that's going to help these employees even more take off some of the financial stress that they can be under when having to create a new office setting for themselves. Next part here is company culture. when operating in a hybrid workforce, this is one of the first areas to go. A lot of studies have shown that just something as simple as having video chats for every type of meeting will add that personal interaction and help with inclusivity. Also, including the virtual happy hours is a big way for employees to see their team members, to have that out of office setting with each other, and gives a chance for people to feel like they're being, again, best supported. They're feeling engaged with the company, with the culture. They know what's going on, and the employee engagement and retention will be at an all-time high. Our next part here is making sure that leadership is well equipped. So we need to make sure that there's a more flexible approach. We need to adjust any required skills, competencies to best support the employees and the customers from a distance. Again, this goes into the communication challenge that we were just discussing. And we need to retrain these leaders, the managers, because they're going to be the communication level of the executives to their team members as well. So they're going to be the ultimate middleman in ensuring that employees are feeling that they're well equipped, that the company's behind them, and that they're supporting them in every way, shape, or form. And this ultimately will lead us to that employee engagement that we're looking for. So having a focus on the employee's well-being, an employee assistance program, is something that companies need to look into. This goes into, like we were stating earlier, some of the challenges with knowing the emotional state of our employees. This is a way we can support them. Some other ways companies have found some successes is incorporating an hour of yoga or walking, especially for those employees that are working at home. This is just making sure that they're not experiencing any type of burnout. They also have the opportunity of getting out of the environment that they've created for their workspace and kind of getting a change in pace, since a lot of them are operating outside of their homes. And then having those self-directed learning activities, which ties into that company portal and the intranet. So all of these combined here is the way that we're going to ensure the company success, the company engagement, and making sure that the transition into the hybrid workforce is going to be a smooth transition. And then these are my references. And thank you so much for joining me, and hope you all have a successful rest of your school year. Thanks so much.